Hello, my name is Alaina G. Levine, and I'm president of Quantum Success Solutions and author of the book Networking for Nerds. And I'm truly delighted to be here with you today to talk to you a little bit about one of my favorite subjects, and also an important subject that we should be thinking about right now, which is how to build and nurture and grow collaborations from afar. And I would like to thank the American Astronomical Society for their kind sponsorship of this endeavor and for their support of your career. Remember, the AAS is your strategic career partner throughout the lifetimes of your careers. Engaging your professional society is never more invaluable than in the time of a challenge and a crisis like what we're facing worldwide. And so I want you to understand how you can leverage your membership in your professional society in AAS to advance your career and advance the careers of your colleagues, your contacts, your friends, your peers, even your PIs. So with today's webinar, I will be going into a lot of detail about networking and how to do it virtually. And you know, a lot of the networking that I do just in general before this crisis was virtual. I would love to go to conferences all year round. I am a conference junkie, it's true. I would love to absolutely go to conferences all the time, but I just don't have the resources. I don't have the time or the money or other resources to invest. The majority of the networking that I build, the majority of the networking that I invest in is all about virtual networking. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take some of these principles that I utilize all the time, and we're going to apply it to how we would utilize it, particularly in the middle of a crisis, and how we do it in a sense of helping the other person. Because here's the spoiler alert, networking is not me trying to get something from you. It's not me trying to mine your brain for a job. I'm not trying to trick you into hiring me. Networking is actually the most honorable endeavor in which you can engage, because networking is built on a spirit of generosity. And if you think about networking from that perspective of what can I do for you? How can I help you? How can I add value to your organization and team? How can I be a resource for you during this very challenging period? You not only create opportunities for yourself, but more importantly and more magically and more honorably, you create opportunities for your colleagues. You create opportunities for everyone to advance. And that's what we're trying to do. So with this webinar, you are welcome to live tweet it and take photographs even of the slides if you want. I just ask that, of course, if you are going to do that, you use the handle for the organization, AAS_office, and the handle for me, so I can retweet what you say. And also, I'd like to invite you to join me on LinkedIn. Alaina G. Levine is my profile on LinkedIn. That's how I send out free career planning resources. So connect with me on LinkedIn so I can send you invitations to free webinars, articles, resources that will help you move your career forward. Okay, so with that in mind, I want to give you a very specific definition of networking so you see that we are working on a spirit of generosity. We are moving forward to assist other people and to assist other organizations as they advance. And by the way, if you are having any audio trouble or video trouble, what I recommend is that you log out and log back in. And this webinar is being recorded and will be on the AAS site for you to review at a future date as well. So let me give you that definition so you know exactly what I'm talking about. So as I said, we're talking about networking in the spirit of generosity. I want to see what I can do to assist you. So networking is not what can I get, but what can I give? And this is not, it is so important to understand that definition and to adopt that into your mind to build the framework, because I don't want you to think that there's anything dishonorable about reaching out to somebody to explore the potential to collaborate, to see if there might be a way that I could assist you, especially during this challenge. There's nothing wrong with that. That's honor, because that's generosity of spirit, and that's what networking is. So here's your definition. Networking is a spectrum of activities. It starts with that first point of contact, which right now is going to be you finding me on LinkedIn or in the membership directory of the AAS or in my alumni association, or maybe you read my paper or you read an article in which I'm quoted. Anything like this, you may find me online. and you're going to reach out to me. So it begins with that first point of contact. And here's the beautiful thing about networking. It is about building win-win collaborations where we're both providing value to each other over time, and it ends only when one or both of us drop dead. And the reason I say that is because this is for the long haul. We are investing in a relationship where we're both going to provide benefits to each other. And those benefits could be in the form of information or advice. It could be that you're introducing me to somebody. It could be that you're telling me about a skill that I should look to improve and hone and even market. You could be nominating me for an award, and vice versa. I could be doing all those same things for you. And all of these things are going to lead to hidden opportunities, hidden game-changing career opportunities for both parties. And that's why it's so valuable, and that's why it's so honorable. So we are engaging in an honorable activity, and that's the most important thing to remember. I want to be generous, and I want to clarify, when I reach out to you and say I want to be a resource, I'm not doing this because I'm not doing this because I want to trick you into giving me a job. I'm doing this with my true heart. I'm doing this because I can see that we are all hurting. I can see that we are all in a terrible crisis, myself included, and we all have to be flexible, and we all have to be generous and be a bright spot if we possibly can for everybody at this time. So the key points when we're talking about networking are a couple of things. First of all, we want to think about compassion and empathy. Recognize that we are in this crisis. When you reach out to people and you email them and you ask them for a 15-minute, a 15-minute phone appointment, for example, or a 15-minute Zoom or Skype or WhatsApp appointment, and by the way, that's all you should be asking for is 15 minutes of somebody's time, you're going to start the email. You're going to start the conversation by saying, I hope you and your family and colleagues are well, staying safe and healthy, because I want you to demonstrate the same compassion that you have for yourself and for your family and for your community. I want other people to understand that you have that same compassion for them too. When you demonstrate that true, genuine compassion and that true empathy for, I understand we're in a very challenging scenario, something that we've never experienced in our lifetimes right now. And it is dynamic. It is a complex system. It is changing day to day, sometimes minute to minute. And it is extremely stressful to be a scientist, to be a professional, to be a student in any sort of scenario like this. So when you recognize to the person that you understand that this is not happening in a vacuum, and you want to have an informal conversation, that's the phrase I use, informal conversation or informational interview, to talk to them about how you could learn, how you could be a resource for them, you are showing them your true heart. You are showing them your honor, and you are honoring them, which can open doors for everybody and create benefits for everybody involved. That's so amazing to me, but it happens. It happens even without the crisis, but in the middle of a crisis, it is even more important to demonstrate our compassion and our empathy and our patience. If you email somebody and ask for that 15-minute Skype appointment and they don't respond right away, it's not appropriate, especially right now, to email them the next day and say, did you get my email? Give them a few weeks, give them at least a week. I would say give them 2 weeks at this point for a new contact. So have that patience and have that flexibility and recognize we're in this together. We're in this together. Every human on the planet is being impacted by this. So let's work together to create something special, to create something new, to move the agenda forward for your organization, for your team, even for your profession together. And that's where the value comes in. Value, value, value. You want to be thinking, what is the value that I could uniquely provide an organization, a team, a professional, an individual at this particular moment? I'm going to step back here for a moment and address the point which I suspect that you might be thinking. For those of you that are early career, STEM goddesses and gods listening to this webinar, you may be thinking to yourself, well, Alaina, I'm a student, I'm a postdoc, I'm early in my career. What value could I potentially offer the doctor god or goddess of my field. And I use that term Dr. God, Dr. Goddess in a loving and sort of humorous way. As you can tell, my comedy is incredibly clever and timely as well. I use that term to refer to the people in our fields that around which the entire field orbits. So they could be the Nobel laureate, it could be a certain PI, it could be the vice president or CEO of an organization, it could be a thought leader, it could be an authority in that field. I call them the Dr. Gods. And a few years ago, I was very interested in the idea, the concept of what does a Dr. God, what does a Nobel laureate want to hear from a early career professional? Why would a Nobel laureate, why would a CEO want to network with an early career professional, or a PI want to network with an undergraduate or a graduate student? And I actually wrote an article about it, which you can find for free online. It's called Networking with Dr. God. It was in Science Magazine. And I interviewed a Nobel laureate and a CEO and a number of other leaders. And really, I couldn't believe the extent of the value that they described that early career professionals could provide them as established leaders in their field. They saw the value, they saw the invaluable opportunity for a leader, an established leader in their field, to network with an emerging leader in their field. And part of that value is your perspective. You and I are unique individuals. And so I don't necessarily have the same experience as you. You come from a diverse background, diverse from me, different from me. You've had different experiences, gained different skills. You have different knowledge bases. You have different network accesses and access to different networks. All these things are different. And the difference and the diversity is the key. That is something that's very valuable to me as an established leader. That is definitely something that would drive me to want to network with somebody who is emerging in their field, because that diversity leads to innovation. It leads to novel solutions, which we can deploy. You also provide me as an established leader, you also provide me very specific hard value. For example, I know that, you can see in this video, I look like I'm 22. I mean, it's so obvious that I look so young, and I'd like to thank the chemical engineering community for their support of this endeavor, okay? But the reality is I'm actually 45. Yes, it's true. And, as a 45-year-old, when I was at university, I did not do this, right? We never used cell phones at my university. I went to school in the 90s, so back when humans were hunting on the flat earth with dinosaurs was when I went to school. And so we didn't have cell phones. We had very little access to the internet. I mean, I had to go across the campus to actually find computers that were connected to the internet. So there are techniques that you as an early career professional have access to and have innately learned in the process of being early and young in your career that are valuable to me, that will help me in my pursuit of whatever it is that I'm doing. So those are just two examples of value that you provide as an early career professional. But here's another spoiler alert for you. Your goal, and I'm going to show you that in the next slide, your goal is to always be looking for opportunities where you can add value. And it may not come from the first conversation, but just by offering, I want to see in the first email, just by offering, I want to see if I can be a resource to you. Maybe there's a way I can be of value to you, especially during this challenging time. Please let me know if we can talk about it for 15 minutes. And if you're early in your career, at this point, you can also say, I'm also, getting ready to graduate. I'm getting ready to explore my career options. And I'd love to learn more about what it's like to work in your field. And maybe there's a way that I can assist you where I am right now, or maybe I can serve as a resource. Resource, value, value, value. So related to the resource, related to the value is your ability to solve problems. See, remember that any job that you're hired to do, no matter what job it is, you will be solving problems. So you want to demonstrate that you are here to solve problems that they may not necessarily have been able to solve before. I'm going to give you examples in a few moments. You want to demonstrate a graciousness, gratitude, and giving. These are the three G's that I've been thinking about myself in the middle of this coronavirus crisis. I'm trying to think, what can I give? How can I support? How can I be a resource? I'm a professional speaker and a science writer, and I speak at a lot of conferences around the world and universities around the world. And you can imagine that as soon as coronavirus hit, my gigs were immediately canceled or postponed. So that meant that a big chunk of my activity for the year was gone. Also meant a big chunk of my income was gone. So I knew that I had to move. I knew that I had to do something. I had to be a career entrepreneur, which is something I'm going to talk to you more about in a bit. It's something you need to do at any point in your career, to be a career entrepreneur. And what that is looking for problems that you are uniquely qualified to solve. So what I did was I reached out to clients, I reached out to colleagues, I reached out to people in my network, and I said, I hope you are well and healthy and your family is well and healthy during this challenging time. I wanted to let you know that I do a lot of webinars. And if I can assist your team in advancing your mission by doing these webinars on topics that might be of interest to you that are timely right now, like networking from afar, like crisis planning for your career or career planning in a crisis, I'm here to help you. I want to serve as a resource. And if there's anything else I can do to assist you, please let me know. We're in this together. And I wanted my contacts to know that we're in this together. And that's what I'm going to continue doing, is being a resource as much as possible. Graciousness, gratitude, giving. And that relates to the flexibility, the customization, and the adaptability. Thinking about what are the things you could potentially do for contacts is always a good idea. So your ongoing questions to be a career entrepreneur, your ongoing questions are, what problems am I uniquely qualified and positioned to solve? And those problems may not just be scientific, especially early in your career. You may have business skills from doing clubs, from being involved in your community, from even being involved in class projects. You're developing teamwork and communication skills, and maybe social media marketing skills, and maybe inventory skills, and maybe the ability to schedule, to strategic plan, or to do safety checks. Let's say you work for a telescope and you're doing safety checks. Those are all hard business skills. That's part of who you are. That's part of the value that you provide a potential client. And just so we're clear, a client is anyone who invests any resources in you. So that includes a potential employer, but it also includes somebody in your network, because they're investing time and other potential resources in you now and in the future to nurture the relationship, to see how you can move forward. So I'm also thinking about, what value can I add to this project, to this team, to this organization, to this field? This information will be elucidated in that 15-minute informal conversation. Do not expect from yourself to know every piece of value and every aspect of you being a resource just by emailing the person. That's the point of the conversation. The point of the conversation is so you can understand what problems they're engaged in right now, what unique challenges they have, especially during this crisis, that you might be able to assist them with. Maybe they need a fact checker associated with a particular astrophysical document. You have that experience. Maybe they need somebody to run some code. You have that experience. You can ask them, can you tell me a little bit about some of the challenges you're facing? Because I'd love to be able to work with you, and maybe there's a way I can be a resource for you at this time. When you're pursuing this, when you're asking these questions of them and of yourself, you're also asking not only what challenges can I help you overcome, but what opportunities can we collectively pursue? Because what happens with networking is that you not only create opportunities for yourself, and not only you create opportunities for the other party, but you create opportunities together for both of you. And that's a really special thing. And that's something that we can really do, particularly when we're networking from afar. These are the types of things you want to be thinking about. So with this in mind, I also want to give you some facts to think about to allow you to feel comfortable with the idea of networking. Remember, it's a spirit of generosity. That's the base of networking. It's about, what can I do for you, not what can I get from you. But with this in mind, I want you to be aware that, consider this, we all need new collaborators at any given time. And we need to expand our network at any given time. And in a crisis, we need them more than ever. Why? Because think about it this way. If I'm dealing with new challenges, novel challenges, especially associated with this coronavirus crisis, there's something I'm going to need new perspectives. I'm going to need new talent. I'm going to need new people to help me think about these challenges and solve these problems in new ways. This is where I'm going to tap into my network. This is where I'm going to approach my network and say, does anybody know about this? Or do you know anything about X? Or have you ever done anything with Y? I'm actually going to be proactive in going to my network to ask them if they can help me as a resource too. And so similarly, from your perspective as somebody who's networking for the first time, or networking, newly networking, particularly as an introvert, I want you to be aware that right now in a crisis, your value, the value, that the essence of what you could potentially provide me or another contact is of the utmost importance, because I absolutely have these unique challenges now that I've never had to face before, and I need people, new perspectives, new talent, new skills to help me solve these challenges in new ways. So this is not, you are not interrupting somebody. You are not intruding on somebody when you network in this way, when you ask for that 15-minute Skype or Zoom appointment. You are going at it from that spirit of generosity, because everybody needs a collaborator at any given time. And that relates to another fact, which is we all need jobs at any given time. So the thing is that I know that if you contact me and you ask for that informational interview, that at some point, maybe not this moment, but at some point you may need a job. And I may need a job too. We both need jobs. We have to pay our rent. We have to pay for our food. If you're me, we have to have a significant cupcake budget as well. And so there are things that we absolutely have to pay for from being employed. And I know that when you contact me. But what we're not going to do is ask for a job. I'm not going to ask you for a job. Certainly not when I first meet you, because I want to learn more about what you need so I could potentially help you solve that. And that networking, that first network contact is going to build into a relationship that's going to lead to those hard benefits for both parties. It can lead to a job for you. It can also lead to a job for me. In other words, we're going to be helping each other. That's the win-win collaboration. So what we're trying to do when we continue our work, we are trying to, in this crisis, learn and hone as new skills if we possibly can, that can be adjusted, that can be flexible, that can be adapted to whatever crisis we happen to be working on at the moment. We want to utilize this time to meet and speak with new people in diverse fields. Don't just limit yourself to astronomy or astrophysics or planetary science or whatever your field is. Go beyond that. Every person who is different from you has unique value to help you with your problem, and vice versa. And you want to gain information and perspective that will enable success for everybody involved. So I want to give you a couple of examples, some of my favorite examples of people who aimed, when they were networking, to create a win-win. Yes, they needed a job. Yes, they wanted a job, but they aimed for that mutually beneficial alliance. And in doing so, they had opportunities presented to them from thin air. And some of you may have heard when we talk about networking, I talk about when you are networking, you get access to what I call the hidden platter of opportunities. And I call it a platter because it's actually offered to you only when you're networking, only when you're reaching out to contacts and asking for those 15-minute appointments and having conversations to decide and figure out what it is that you could do for a party. That hidden platter of opportunities is offered to you. It's actually offered to you when I get a sense of what it is that you could potentially do for me, with me, and to build something new, to create a new opportunity for both of us. So let me tell you a couple of stories. So the first story is about a biophysicist, and I wrote about this story in a Science magazine article a few years ago called, it was, I don't remember the exact title, but the article focused on nanotechnology of biosystems. So in this article, so you could Google it and you'd find it. And if you can't, of course, email me. I am happy to send you the link. So in this article, this biophysicist was getting his PhD and he really wanted to work in biosensors. He did not have much experience in a particular area of biosensors that would be required if he wanted to work in this subfield. Now, he could have looked, but he knew he wanted to do a postdoc. Now, he could have looked for job advertisements of postdoc positions where he would be doing biosensors, but he recognized that given that he lacked a particular skill to go into this subfield, that he would be competing against people who had that skill, and that would lead nowhere. And of course, if I advertise a position, I suddenly am inundated with emails and queries and comments and applications, and I don't know who these people are. So it's always best to network, and that's what he knew too. So what did this biophysicist do? He did a literature search. He did a literature search to find people who were working in biosensors, but lacked a specific aspect of biophysics that would be useful in biosensors that he could teach them. So what he did was he approached professors and said, I think there might be an opportunity for us to collaborate. I have experience in this area of biophysics. I'd like to learn more about nanotechnology, or I'd like to learn more about this area of biosensors, and I can teach you about this area of biophysics. Would it be possible that we have an informal conversation to discuss the potential for collaboration? And that led to him getting yes responses from emails, as opposed to them being ignored, because he was offering something, not asking for something. And a position, a postdoc position, was created for him in the lab of a mechanical engineering professor at Northeastern University. And I loved her quote. She said, he taught us techniques in biophysics, and we taught him about nanoscience. It was the true essence of a win-win collaboration. But that position was created for him, specifically for him, because he presented himself as a value addition, as somebody who could help them solve a problem, while asking for opportunities, which we're always doing anyway, but seeing what he could do to assist them. Generosity of spirit. Another wonderful example, I love this one, is a story of a mathematician. I wrote about this in my book, Networking for Nerds. She had always wanted to work for the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and she had looked for opportunities, she had looked for jobs. She did not see jobs that had an alignment between the skills that she had and the experience she had and what they were looking for. But instead of being sad and going and crying in a corner, she didn't give up. She thought about what was the unique value that she had as a mathematician. And she realized that, of course, she could model, given her experience and her knowledge, she could model anything. She could model anything. She was very good with calculations and quantifications. So she started approaching different divisions of JPL to ask for the potential to collaborate, to ask for the opportunities to discuss a way that we could contribute, or I could contribute value to your team. I have this unique skill set. I might be of use to you as a modeler. And in the essence, what she did, and she told me this, I sold myself as an applied mathematician who could solve any problem. And she had a position created for her, I believe, in the volcanology group, or one of the volcanology groups at JPL. Dream job acquired, unicorn career acquired from networking, manifesting out of nothing, because she came forward and said, I want to see if I can help you. The last story some of you may have heard. I love this story. The Man with a Plan for Cans. That's actually the title of the article that this is based on. I wrote that article for APS News, so you can Google that title. This story is about a physicist who was working as a professor in North Carolina, and he had a commuter marriage with his wife, who was based in my home state of New Jersey. Yes! Do I got the New Jersey hair? Based in New Jersey, she was working for Campbell's Food Company as a food scientist. And they had the classic two-body problem that we hear about in academia and science, where we have two highly educated and very specially educated people in a relationship. And unlike most couples, they actually wanted to live with each other, but it was so difficult for them to actually find jobs in the same community. So they had to have a commuter marriage. They flew back and forth to see each other, North Carolina to New Jersey and vice versa. So one day, this physicist, a theoretical particle physicist, flies up to New Jersey, has dinner with his wife and some of the executives from the plant at Campbell's where they make the mushroom soup. And over dinner, these executives were talking about a problem, a problem that they had in their enterprise at this very moment. This was their problem. You see, every can of mushroom soup, when you open it up at the end, has to be exactly the same color, right? You can't have mushrooms go down the line and make a can of soup that when you open it up, it's green, and the next can is purple, and the next can is gold, because that's gross and it's bad quality control. So these executives needed to find a way to actually identify mushrooms that went down the line and then remove them that could potentially change the outcome, the final product. But woe unto me, oh, this is so sad. I'm just an executive. I just have experience in my domain. I don't know how to solve this problem. Well, in swoops this superhero physicist. And he did act like a superhero at that moment, because what he did was he heard them talking about that problem. He heard them discussing that pain point that they had in their system that needed to be alleviated. And he heard them talking about it in their language. And he gave them a response. He said, what about if you use such and such optical device? This was an optical device that he had at the forefront of his mind. It was part of his toolbox. It was part of his toy box. This was a potential solution that the executives did not think of. I don't even know if they even had it in their mind that the optical device existed. This is where diversity leads to innovation. This is where networking leads to opportunities being manifested out of nowhere, because those executives heard him talk about how he could solve the problem with that device. And they said, huh. And that led to a conversation, which led to a project, which led to a sabbatical job, which led to bump-a-bump, a job being created for a theoretical particle physicist at Campbell's Soup Company. Two-body problem solved. He gets to live with his wife. He gets to move into the soup community and use his physics knowledge to solve problems in new ways in a new ecosystem, which was enjoyable for him. This was a pleasure, an intellectual pleasure for him. But the point is that in the moment, he heard them talking about a wall that was impeding innovation, a pain point in a system. That's what a career entrepreneur listens for. What are the problems that have not been solved yet? And because they were speaking in their language of industry and their language of that community, he was getting that language and he spoke to them in that language. You have to speak in the language of the community in which you want to engage. My friend, Brian Mello, the science comedian, he talks about this. He talks about if you were going to go to France, would it be dumbing it down if you spoke to people from France in French? Absolutely not. That's strategic communications. That's appropriate communications. That's necessary communications. And similarly, if you're going to move from ecosystem to ecosystem, you have to know and utilize the language of that ecosystem for them to understand what value you would provide from the ecosystem you're coming from. So because he communicated his value and helped them show them that he could help them solve a problem, showing them that he saw answers where others didn't, he was able to have a position created for him in Campbell's Soup Company, a particle physicist who studied gluons and quarks with no food science experience was given a job in the plant where they make mushroom soup because at the right moment he communicated how he could be valuable to them. That is generosity of spirit. That is networking at its finest, at its most honorable. So the thing that I want you to be thinking about is that the majority of jobs and game-changing career opportunities that can lead to fellowships, that can lead to conversations, that can lead to projects like serving on a committee or taking a leadership role or being on a paper with somebody or editing a paper with somebody or doing any sort of project with somebody, most of those are hidden or don't exist yet. They only come into existence via that hidden platter of opportunity when you and I are networking and I get a sense of who you are. And the other reason that networking is so important, not only does it elucidate and create hidden opportunities for both parties and anybody in the aura, even really quite frankly, but there's another reason. And I want you to think about this equation sort of, or this scenario in terms of hiring. Let's say I am a decision maker or a hiring manager and I need to hire somebody into my team. I have a specific opening right now, a position that needs to be filled. I will advertise this position. I'll promote it maybe to my network and maybe also advertise it on the website of the organization, maybe on LinkedIn, maybe through the AAS job registry, maybe through another type of scenario. I will always end up with two metaphorical piles of applications that will help me, that I can choose from to invite people for interviews. So the first pile of applications that I have will come through the website, will come through the LinkedIn ads, will come through the job registry. It will come through potentially a wormhole from another dimension, another universe, and I don't know who those people are. They could be non-human creatures, for all I know. They're just coming in because they saw the advertised position. That pile of applications, depending on the ecosystem, the position, the time, such as right now, the era in which we are in, the crisis that we're engaged in, that pile can consist of 100 or 200, 300, or even more applications. But I always will have another metaphorical pile of applications to look at, to think about who I want to invite in to interview. That pile consists of 1, 2, maybe 3 applications. It consists of your application because you reached out to me during this crisis and said, "Dear Alaina, I read your work and I think there might be a way that I could assist you. Could we explore the potential to collaborate? I got to know your skills. I got to know your passion. I got to know your goals. I can see an alignment between your goals and my needs. I tell you about this position. Your application goes to the top of this other pile." The second person, it might be something that someone who I've been networking with for many years, and they hear about this position and they email me and they say, "Dear Alaina, I hope all is well with you. I hope your family and your friends and your colleagues are healthy and well and safe. I saw with great interest that you have this position open. As you know, I'm very interested in joining your organization. I would love to be able to contribute to your team. And this position sounds perfect for me. I am submitting my application and I just wanted to let you know." And you could even ask me, "Is it possible for us to have a short appointment? I'd like to catch up with you and see if there's anything I can do to tailor my application for this particular position." That's application number 2 on the short pile. And application number 3, it might be that my good friend Dawn, my fabulous friend, Doc G, Dawn, she knows somebody. And she knows that I'm looking for somebody to fill this position. And Doc G, Dawn Gelino, she tells that person that Alaina's looking for somebody. And because I know Doc G, and I know that she's trustworthy and she's a fantastic person and she has amazing style and she's brilliant, by the way. I know her very well. I know that she is going to not send me somebody who would not work for me. She's only going to send me a winner. So that person goes onto my pile because Doc G has vetted that person for me. So now I need to hire somebody. I need to find candidates that would be a good fit, particularly at this moment, particularly in this crisis, and somebody who would fit into the culture of my organization and be able to hit the ground running, providing value, solving problems. Which pile am I always going to go to? Which pile is going to involve less risk on my part as a hiring manager or decision maker? You know it. It will always be the pile of the 3 applications, the people that I know and the people that my friends know or my colleagues or my contacts know, my trusted contacts. It will always reduce the risk. And I, as a decision maker, am always looking to reduce risk in the hiring process. So I will always go with people that I know, even people who reached out to me at this moment in the middle of a crisis, because you're helping me, because you are identifying yourself as somebody who could potentially fill this position, and you want to learn more about whether you would be a good fit. That is appropriate for you to do at this moment. It is absolutely appropriate. So we're going to access these hidden opportunities. We're going to access and create these opportunities first by knowing our value, then by communicating our value through effective and appropriate self-promotion. I'm going to tell you about that in a moment. Under the framework of generosity and honor, by trying to align, communicating how you can align your value with a challenge that somebody's experiencing, always showing that your value solves a problem. And just another reference that I wanted just to clarify, that most opportunities are hidden. Like I said, not every opportunity is a job, but you should seize opportunities when they come by. And most people will not even notice opportunities. They will keep their eyes shut and they will not see or sense opportunities in any way. And much of that, quite frankly, is due to imposter syndrome. When I was in school, when I was a student, when I was a wee lass at the University of Arizona, I saw signs all over campus advertising a travel fellowship that students could apply for to study abroad. And I saw this fellowship, and it was a nationally competitive fellowship for students from across the United States. I said to myself, I'm not even going to bother applying. I'm not going to get that. There's no way I can compete against students from other schools who are doing better things or better grades. Not me, no way, not me, no how. No, I'm not going to do it. I talked myself out of it. And then one day in class, in English class, in fact, one of my friends skipped into class and she yelled loudly in a very jovial manner, "Guess what? I'm going to China. I got this fellowship." And I was so mad. I was so mad. But was I mad at her? I wasn't mad at her. I was mad at myself. Why did I think that I wasn't worthy? Why did I think that I wasn't valuable enough, that there wasn't something good enough about me that I could apply? And it really, really was a monumental moment in my life relating to imposter syndrome and relating to looking for opportunities and networking, because it gave me bravery. It gave me courage to be able to reach out to people and say, I don't know if I might be what I can do for you, but I want to see if there's an opportunity to collaborate. You have to be brave and bold and courageous in your networking, just like you have to do in your opportunity identification and opportunity leveraging, taking advantage and seizing and creating opportunities. And by the way, after that moment when she did that, and I realized that I had been engaged in high-level imposter syndrome, talking myself out of an opportunity, not even applying, the next year I did apply, and I did get that travel fellowship to go to Egypt, and it was an absolutely transformative experience. Shukran. So the point that I wanted to make to you is, don't let imposter syndrome trick you into thinking that you should not be or could not or would not get this opportunity, or should not or could not or would not be able to speak to this person or learn from this person or potentially contribute to this team. Particularly right now in this crisis, be bold, be brave to say to somebody, to email them even out of the blue. And you can be honest, you can say, I'm early in my career explorations. I'm a student and I'm learning what I can do to advance my career in this field. Would it be possible to have that 15-minute Zoom conversation with you to informally converse or to informally talk about what it is that you do and how I might be able to even help you, and or how I could potentially contribute to your team, perhaps now or in the future. These are the phrases that you can employ. So this is the idea of being a career entrepreneur, looking for problems you're uniquely qualified to solve, and always being mindful of that hideous, insidious imposter syndrome. Do not let that convince you that you are not a star, okay? Be bold, be brave in your networking. So networking, as I mentioned, is very closely aligned with self-promotion. So you are actually promoting yourself every time you reach out to somebody. You are communicating your value. You are sharing what it is you could potentially do for that person. And so what you want to be thinking about is promoting yourself in the most effective and appropriate way. So when I use the word self-promotion, I don't mean boasting. I don't mean bragging. I never, ever mean lying or embellishing. We never lie or embellish the truth. We just tell the full truth of our value. So self-promotion, first of all, happens in an appropriate form and ecosystem. So for example, me posting an article about 10 ways to advance your career in a crisis on LinkedIn, that's appropriate because LinkedIn, that ecosystem is designed for this type of self-promotion. Me emailing you and saying, I have a PhD in astrophysics with expertise in gamma ray bursts, and I can see there might be an opportunity for collaboration. Guess what? I just promoted myself to you. I just told you what I do. I told you what my value is. That's appropriate. You don't run up or email somebody and say, I'm awesome. Hire me. Go with me. Network with me. Nor do you run up to somebody and email them and say, I'm your savior. I'm going to solve all your problems. Make no mistake, the way I've been talking about being generous of spirit in this sense of networking, virtual networking in particular in the middle of a crisis, it is not about you being the savior or a savior. It is about you being a collaborator, you being a contributor of value, you being somebody who is interested in building that mutually beneficial partnership for the long haul. So self-promotion happens in an appropriate time and form and ecosystem, authentically and truthfully providing strategic information about your value that encourages me to make a decision to engage you in another way in the future in a positive manner. So you saying that you have a background in volcanology, and I happen to be working on a volcanology project, that is appropriate self-promotion. You saying that you're an undergraduate student getting a degree in physics and astronomy, and you want to learn more about what it's like to work at my university or to work in my field of exoplanets, that is strategic and appropriate self-promotion. You have to champion your value. If you don't champion, if you don't speak up about your value in an appropriate form and context, nobody will know what value you can provide. And I want to be aware, I want to clarify that, of course, I recognize that science, astronomy and astrophysics and planetary science, and even more broadly, nations and cultures around the world all have unique cultures, right? Astronomy has its unique culture. It's very different from other STEM fields and other science. The science field or the community of scientists has a very different culture than other fields of scholarship. And this industry has a very different culture than that industry, and the nation of X has a very different culture than the nation of Y. And I understand, of course, that in many cultures around the world, in this planet and also on at least 17 exoplanets that I personally have studied, there is a understanding that we do not brag. We do not yell and say that we're great. We just don't do that. We are more humble. And what I'm presenting to you is a way of being humble, a way of being honorable in your networking and self-promotion, while still communicating the value that you could provide the other person. Because that's what it's about. It's about honor, honoring you, honoring me, honoring what we could potentially create together. I am not ever going to brag. I am not ever going to boast, but I am going to champion my own value in an appropriate form and context for the culture in which I'm operating, to make sure that you understand what it is that I could potentially help you with. And that might be in the form of not just one, but multiple conversations that we have. So I've been talking about how to actually network, right? I've been talking about how you reach out to people and email them and what you say in the email. And I want to give you two resources here. I wrote a career column for Physics Today magazine for many years, and I wrote a two-part article for the magazine, which you can access for free online at physicstoday.org, physicstoday.org, I believe. The two-part article is called Informational Interviews 1 and 2. And in those articles, I actually give you the template of the email you can use, which of course you will adjust, adding the compassionate language about the fact that we're in this crisis together. And I also give you a list of questions to ask when you have those informal conversations, also known as informational interviews. So that's the title of the article. It's a two-part article, Informational Interviews 1 and 2 on physicstoday.org or .com. And I apologize that I don't remember the exact address. So you found people, now you've figured out exactly how to communicate with people, but now we need to find people for you to network with. So one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to, sorry, just a second. Okay, sorry about that. So one of the things that we're going to do when we are thinking about networking in terms of finding people is we're always going to start with the first people in our network, right? The people who are closest to us, colleagues, advisors, and friends. We're also going to look at our professional organizations. And in particular with the AAS and your whatever professional associations, other professional associations you are aligned with, this is the perfect time to reach out to the membership director and talk about how you can become a member if you're not, and how you can become an engaged member. How can I volunteer? Can I serve on committees? I want to learn how I can be more contributive to my organization, to my professional society. I also want to look at conferences. So conferences, even if they have occurred in the past, even virtual conferences that are happening, and I'll tell you about a very special one in a bit, you can review the scientific program and you can email that person even years after they presented to say, dear Dr. Levine, I saw that you presented on the topic of science writing and the connection with social media at this conference in 2017. This is a topic that's of great interest to me. I'm an undergraduate student in astronomy and physics, and I'm thinking about careers in science communications. Would it be possible to have a 15-minute Zoom appointment with you? I'd like to learn more about what you're working on. And here at my university, maybe there's something I can do to assist you with your endeavors. Thank you so much. So the conferences, even if you're not actually at the conferences, you can actually use the agenda to find people to reach out to. And going back to professional organizations, one of the most underutilized resources that you have at your disposal to help you network and to help you find people to network with is your professional organization's membership directory. Go through the AAS directory and look and do searches and find people who are working in jobs or working in organizations or working in fields or subfields or subfields or geographies that are of interest to you, and reach out to them. Reach out to them and ask for those informal conversations that I've been talking about. You can also find people from reading journal papers that people write and asking them, saying, I see an alignment between our interests, or I see an alignment between what you've done and what I want to do in my career as I'm early in my career. Could we have a conversation to discuss? Or You can also find people who are quoted in articles. So quoted in the media. So to that end, if there was somebody that you were looking for, let's say you were looking for somebody who does gamma ray bursts, you could potentially do, of course, a Google Scholar search for gamma ray burst articles, journal papers, but you could also do a Google News alert and a Google News search to find people who were quoted, experts who were quoted associated with their expertise in GRBs, and then email them. I saw you were mentioned in the New York Times. I saw you were mentioned in Science Magazine, and I'd love to talk to you more about what you're doing. Maybe there's something I can do to assist you, to be a resource. Regional chapters and internal organizations of other organizations, companies, universities, those are also helpful, as are alumni associations, and LinkedIn in particular has a wonderful way to connect with alumni. And you can just go to your university on your LinkedIn profile, and you can get something called Alumni Insights, and you'll be able to see where alumni from different departments work, where they live, what they've studied, what they've gone to do, what their job function is, and so forth. And then, of course, social networks. LinkedIn is by far the most important network that you should be on right now for virtual networking from afar. LinkedIn is the way that people across all industries, including academia, including science, including astronomy, astrophysics, and planetary science, it is the way that people connect, that people find other individuals. There might be other sites that are also useful for you, depending on what industry or depending on what field you want to go into. For example, Twitter is very helpful to me, as is Facebook, but then maybe even ResearchGate. But you absolutely have to be on LinkedIn, and you'd be surprised how enriching LinkedIn is to find contacts and to create opportunities to self-promote appropriately and to network, to create those long-lasting opportunities and experiences for people. So our networking strategy, just to sort of summarize it, is understanding that it's a spectrum of continuous activities. So it starts with that first point of contact and aims for a long-term relationship where we're both providing value over time. It also is based on the theory, which has been proven, of 6 degrees of separation, which says that every person on this planet is connected by no more than 6 degrees. So I know somebody who knows Doc G, and I know somebody who knows this Nobel laureate, and I know somebody who knows somebody who works at this university or this company or this industry or so forth. So that helps us to reduce the problem to a problem that has finite boundaries, something that we can actually solve. And my background's math and physics. My degree is in mathematics. I was seduced by the dark side and got my degree in math after I left the physics department formally. But I never physically left physics because, as you know, physics is like the Godfather. Once you're in, you can't get out, and that's fine with me. I love physics, and I love astronomy, and I love these communities. And what I want to say is that you will always be able to connect with people no matter what you're doing, but if you think about it as a finite problem. And as a mathematics person, I think about trying to network. I think about networking as a problem that has to be solved, but I can identify that it can be broken into finite pieces, particularly with the idea of 6 degrees of separation. So then I'm going to find context for my network, and that was that previous slide that I just showed you. I'm going to ask for those informational interviews or informal conversations, conduct those conversations, connect on LinkedIn, send thank you notes, and at this point in time, because of the crisis, I would just adhere to electronic communications only. Later on, you could potentially send handwritten notes, but not right now. But then maintain your network and stay connected, follow up. And if you want to know how to follow up with networking and how to keep those conversations going, growing, and flowing, you can Google my name and how to follow up. And I wrote an article about it for Physics Today magazine, 4 ways to follow up in the email to stay connected. Every time you connect with somebody, you will ask them, who else do you think I should speak to? Because they almost always will give you one other person, and then offer to be of assistance, as always. So some final thoughts about networking strategy in a crisis. I want to always be seen as a resource. And I also want to be polite and respectful and deliver and showcase my honor for you. So I'm going to ask you, would it be possible to have this call with you? And I'm going to be patient. I'm not going to expect you to respond right away. I'm going to invest for the future because I'm starting to grow these relationships now. And you're going to gain value from it just as much as I'm going to gain value. So we're going to stick to those 3 G's: generosity, grace, and gratitude. Thank you. and always trying to pay it forward, always trying to be a bright spot for another party during this crisis. So be compassionate in your choice of words, in how you speak, in what you discuss, and even when you discuss it. Be flexible, be mindful of the issues, be communicative of those issues, be easy to work with in the middle of this crisis, and ask questions. That's what the informational interview is there for. It's for you to gather data and insight about current and future needs and goals of this other person, so that you can start building that really exciting partnership with them. Offer ideas, make it a conversation. Share with them insight about your value, about your experience, about your goals. Oh, you work in exoplanets. That's something I'm really interested in working on as a graduate student. What would be some ideas that or what can I do to position myself for success to work in exoplanets or to get into graduate school to study exoplanets right now as an undergraduate where I am right now? But always be thinking, what can you do for me, right? Or what I can do for you, right? Generosity, of course. And what else can I do for you? Stay connected, check in, and remember we are all in this together. So the bottom line, networking is honorable. It is absolutely generous. It's generous at all times. It's generous right now. When you reach out to me, I know that you're not trying to get something from me. You're trying to help me. You're trying to help me with your unique value, with your diversity of mind, with your diversity of skills, experiences, and knowledge, and perspective, and tools. You are here to help me just as much as I'm here to help you. It's generosity, it's grace, it's gratitude. But it is necessary. Networking is absolutely necessary for all parties. It's the only way to create and get access to that hidden platter of opportunities. So become that career entrepreneur. Look for problems that you can solve. Look for opportunities where you can be brave and courageous in your networking, where you see pain points that can be alleviated, walls that can be knocked down. But remember that right now in this crisis, networking is delicate. It is delicate. And we are not only dealing with our own professional experiences right now, but we're dealing with potentially working from home. We're dealing with being in a house or an apartment or a small flat, even with a number of family members, with children who are home from school, with lots of pets that you might not have wanted to see all day and every day. We don't know. This is a very stressful circumstance for everyone. So I want to be delicate in my networking, but understand that it is doable and it also is necessary, because it is a way of helping another party, particularly in the middle of a crisis, by serving as a resource. So look beyond your area of expertise, your knowledge, your geography, be diverse in your networking, do it often, and you will be able to invest in your and your colleagues' futures now and throughout the rest of time. And when this crisis is over, people will truly appreciate and they will remember that you did serve as that bright light, that you were there to be generous, to help them with what they needed. They will know that you are a resource, that you are a problem solver, that you are the one they should work with in the future. Speaking of the future, I am so psyched. Can I get a virtual high five? Yes! The AAS 236th meeting is the first virtual meeting that the American Astronomical Society is going to be hosting. It's going to be happening 1 through 3 June of 2020. The abstract submission deadline is coming up next week on the 14th of April. I want you to consider applying and submitting your abstract for this amazing virtual meeting. You will be able to attend plenary talks, sessions. There will be a virtual job fair. There will even be actual networking opportunities facilitated by the AAS in a virtual scenario. This is going to be a wonderful opportunity for you to connect with other people in your field. And I encourage you to look for other opportunities where there are virtual conferences that you can leverage and take advantage of. A reminder that you are welcome to tweet anything that I said, even photographs of the slides. And of course, if you'd like free career planning resources, I encourage you to connect with me on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn profile is linkedin.com/in/Alaina G. Levine. With that, this concludes the formal webinar. I would like to thank you for your kind attention, for investing in me for this period of time. This was my true pleasure and honor. I really appreciate that I had the chance to work with you. And I would like to thank the American Astronomical Society for their kind sponsorship and remind you that the AAS is your strategic career planning resource throughout the lifetimes of your careers. This webinar has been recorded. It will be available on the AAS. Please join me on LinkedIn. Please let me know how I can help you. I'm not going to wish you good luck in your networking or in your career because you don't need it, but I will say go forward, be generous, pay it forward, and you will be able to create opportunities that you never could have even imagined. I'm going to take some questions now in case anybody did have any questions, but this concludes the formal part of the webinar. So we did have some questions. So somebody asked, and I love this question, thank you for asking this, Camille, you mentioned being brave and believing you're valuable, but what about the next step? What about when somebody asks something of you and you panic because as an introvert, you feel trapped or threatened or overwhelmed by the desire to be left alone in the corner? And I totally understand that. Thank you very much for asking that question. It's a wonderful question. I work in a field of introverts. I work with many, many nerds. I am a nerd myself, but admittedly, I am an extroverted nerd. So unlike some people who are enjoying the time being in their house alone, I am not climbing the walls exactly because I have the chance to speak with you today, but I do love being around people. So but I do understand the introvert's mindset. I do understand that nerd mindset. So when you are thinking about going forward and offering somebody something of yourself, you don't have to do that in the first conversation even, or in the first line. The key is to ask questions. Ask questions. What's the best part of your job? What is some of the projects that you're working on right now? How has the coronavirus impacted your work, your schedule, your projects? Is it causing any delays? Oh, that's interesting. You've done this. That's the kind of thing I'm interested in doing. Maybe I can assist you with that. So you're looking for opportunities in that moment where you could potentially help them. And it may not become elucidated until you have even a couple of conversations, but what you're doing is you're taking data. And that's something that an introvert, a scientist, somebody who is a nerd, that's something that you definitely can do. You know how to take data. You're taking data on the problems that exist. And when you feel comfortable, you can say, well, maybe there's a way I can help you. Would it be possible that I could help you with this? Or what if I assisted you with this? I am an undergraduate, I am early in my career, or I've just pivoted into this career path, but maybe there's something I can do to assist you. Are you open to that conversation? And that's how you build up that bravery. That's how you build up that courageousness, is by just going forward and just getting used to it. Networking and self-promotion gets easier and simpler the more you do it. So it may not necessarily ever be simple or easy for an introvert or nerd. I understand that, but it does get simpler. It does get easier, and you can build up those confidence levels. In fact, virtual networking is fantastic for this purpose. Virtual networking allows you to start building the muscles in your brain that build up the confidence, that give you that boost to overcome imposter syndrome, to reach out to somebody and say, oh, you're the head of this committee at the AAS. I'd like to learn more about what this committee does. Maybe there's a way I can assist you. Or could I learn more about how I can become an engaged member? These are the types of things. It's really about a marathon. It's not a sprint here. We are building muscles in our brain for a marathon of networking over the course of our lifetimes. And each step that you take, you get stronger, you get brighter, gets easier, it gets simpler. So that when you are in a high stakes networking environment, like at a conference or with a Dr. God, you have those muscles already strengthened, already ready to go. That's how you think about it, you're building muscles for going forward. Thank you again, Camille, for that wonderful question. I'm gonna take a few other questions. So here's a really good question, and I appreciate Taylor for asking this. Thank you, Taylor, for this wonderful question. As an adult, non-traditional student, who's seeking an undergraduate degree in astrophysics, how do I separate myself from the younger, more traditional students while networking and even beyond? So first of all, Taylor, high five for you. You rock. I am so happy that you are following your dream, that you are following your goal, your lifetime or whatever it is, want and desire to go and study astrophysics. I think that's fantastic. And not everybody would be as brave or courageous as you to do it at all, let alone as an older student, let alone as a non-traditional student. So I'm thrilled that you're doing this. We always should be in service of our own authenticity. And if you realize that that's part of who you are and you're going for it, that's wonderful, wonderful news. So how do you separate yourself from the quote unquote younger, more traditional students when you're networking? Well, one thing you can do is you can start thinking about what are some of the skills that you've gained from the other experiences that you've had in your life. So they don't have to be astrophysics or science in nature. They can be business, they can be soft skills like team building and leadership. Maybe you were in a job where you were working to oversee a retail environment. Maybe even something as simple as helping to install floors, carpeting and laminate and tile and whatnot. So that might seem like, why should I even mention that in my career search? Why should I even mention that or why would I even think about that as I'm networking? Well, in that job, you got experience. You got experience in marketing the products. You got experience in inventory. You got experience in conflict resolution and customer relations. You got experience in project management and project planning and scheduling, and maybe even supply chain management too, at certain levels. So there's value that you have from those experiences that may not be directly in your mind at this moment correlated with astrophysics, but are absolutely useful. Because as an astronomer, as an astrophysicist, as an astrophysics researcher, I will need a team. I will have a budget. I will have inventory, even if it's computers and pencils. I will have strategic planning that has to go into place. I will have to do marketing, right? And when I write a paper, when I produce a poster or a workshop or a webinar, when I write a grant proposal, I'm marketing myself to whoever's going to invest in me, right? I'm asking for money. I'm asking somebody to invest resources in me. When I give a talk, I'm asking you to invest time and potentially intellectual resources in me now and in the future. So you've engaged in marketing. So the idea is to do a data download from your brain of all the different experiences you've had and think about all of the different hard and soft skills that you gain from those experiences. And then you incorporate that in your elevator pitch, you incorporate that in your introduction, and remember those skills as you're talking to somebody so that you can incorporate that into the conversation. Because you do have value. We all have value at all phases of our life, no matter where we were and where we are and where we're going. It's just a matter of data downloading that data from our own brain, and then understanding the language that is used by the ecosystem we want to go into so that we can then communicate it in a way that they understand it. So that's a very important thing. And again, I want to thank you for that wonderful question. I want to answer one more question. We have time for one more question. So Adam, I want to thank you for your question. What is a practical way to get over the feeling of being a bother to them or I'm not of value to them? So practical way, Adam, thank you for asking that really important question. A practical way to remember that is to remember that anybody at any phase of their life has value. The first piece of value that you have as an early career professional, as a student, that you have to me is your perspective, your unique perspective on things. The second piece of value you have is your ability to see problems in different ways, which is of course closely tied to perspective, but it's also closely tied to your knowledge, your skills, the projects you've been involved in, the people you've been exposed to. The third aspect of value that you have to me is your network. You're resourceful. So if I'm working on a problem that I can't solve, you're going to say to me, even if I can't solve it, Alaina, I will find somebody in my network who is a person who could solve this. So by networking, by expanding our network, we are actually building an army of people who can help us to be resourceful and help our future partners within our network to be resourceful. It all works together. It's a continuous feedback loop. So it will take, again, flexing and training those mental muscles to be more comfortable to say it. But I think that article that I mentioned, Networking with Dr. God, may give you some other ideas. And just the idea also, the other thing is all the hard benefits that you could potentially provide, my lab, my group, my team, whatever it is. There are other things that you could potentially provide that would be of use to me. We will elucidate that and discuss that in the course of our exploring and building our relationship. So with that, unfortunately, we're out of time. But if you have additional questions, you are welcome to email me, Alaina@alainalevine.com. Again, I want to thank you so much This has been truly an honor and a privilege, and I want to wish you safety and health and good health for your family, your friends, your colleagues, your pets. And I want to thank the American Astronomical Society for their kind and generous support of this endeavor. We're going to be doing a lot more career development content and providing a lot more career development resources in the future. And I hope you will join me again in the future. Thank you so much.